When most companies say they're simplifying their tech stack, what they actually mean is they're about to add more tools and make everyone's life more difficult. But Mallory Lee actually simplified things, and the result was more accuracy, more trust, and more growth. As VP of Revenue Operations at PhoneBurner, she tore out a decade of legacy systems, scrapped Salesforce, and rebuilt the company's go-to-market motion around a single principle that she calls SEC, simple, effective, confident. In this episode, Mallory and I talk about what happens when your CRM finally helps people to do their jobs instead of getting in the way. We talk about how great RevOps design makes renewals predictable, why post-sales deserves the same urgency as new business, and how simplifying your systems restores confidence in the data so that every team can move faster and make better decisions. If you've ever wondered how RevOps and account management can actually work together as allies, this conversation will make that clear. I hope you enjoy this episode of Account Management Secrets. If you're an account manager, you already know this. You're the one keeping the business running. You own the client relationships, drive the revenue, and solve the tough problems for your customers. But here's the challenge. Most companies don't give account managers the training or recognition they deserve. That's what you'll get here on the Account Management Secrets podcast. I'm Alex Raymond, and after working with thousands of account managers, I know what separates the best from the rest. In this show, we cover exactly what you need to succeed: handling tough client conversations, driving renewals and upsells with confidence, and proving your value every single day. There's no fluff, no outdated sales tactics, just real practical strategies you can use right now to grow your accounts and build a successful career. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Hey, Mallory, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, congratulations. I know that you just came up on your 1-year anniversary as VP of Revenue Operations at PhoneBurner. I've also followed from a distance some of your journey and seen some of the, ups and downs of being in the RevOps field. I saw that there was quite a conversation a while ago about CRMs and where we're landing and what we want to be doing. And this is a very interesting topic for our audience because we have a lot of conversations about CRM. Let me
Mhm.
put it that way. And so I thought, why don't we kick off there? Let's talk about your view of these kind of fundamental RevOps systems. What's working, what's not working? Where are you going from here? So what happened when you joined the company, and where are you now?
Yeah. Fun topic. It's fun to look back, especially today, because today is actually exactly 1 year at PhoneBurner. And to your point, right away the team asked me to take a look at the CRM and to make an assessment of if it was working for us or not. And so the team was using Salesforce at the time and leveraging a contractor to try to keep it afloat. Um, but after 10 plus years of, changes and integrations and adjustments, there's quite a bit of technical debt that had been built up in that system. And the team was kind of just over it. And so the question became, would we like to do a ton of work to basically reinstall Salesforce fresh? Or would we like to do a ton of work to move to something else? And I truly didn't care either way. I knew that it was going to be a lot of work regardless. So we kind of sat down and started looking at what system would be best for us and did a true side by side comparison, basically of Salesforce and HubSpot. And the reason that we compared those two is because we have a strong PhoneBurner integration with both of those. And we already had HubSpot as our marketing automation tool. So it was a logical one to keep looking into. And ended up moving to HubSpot, which is something that the team had been wanting, but they didn't want to set that expectation during the interview process. They wanted to see if I arrived at that same conclusion. And I did. So we set out on this mission to rebuild our go-to-market motion from a systems perspective. And I have to say I'm really happy with the way that it's worked out. I know I'm biased about that because I designed it, but so far it's been working really well for the team. We were able to get it done in about 90 days, and so it made for a very fast and furious onboarding period at PhoneBurner, rebuilding our product integration to HubSpot and migrating everything over. So it was a little bit crazy, but no looking back, we're really liking it.
That's a big deal, especially after 10 years of using the same system. You got all sorts of legacy data. People are probably talking in Salesforce speak.
Mhm.
And so you definitely have all that. So, and you have the whole sunk cost of like, we've been doing this for a long time. Let's just continue. So looking at it from a fresh pair of eyes to say, what's the best way forward, is the right thing to do, but presumably was tough at times to say, are we really going to give up on something we've been working with for so long, right?
Yep, I agree with that. And I think that when you have team turnover, um, it does introduce a person to the mix that isn't emotionally tied to what's been built in Salesforce. And I think that helps because you're right. Once you put so much time and effort into something, you wonder if it's best to, really scrap it. Um, and I think that our business had evolved to the extent that not only was the Salesforce implementation kind of complicated, um, it was just broken at times, just didn't work correctly. And so being able to apply those learnings to the way that we rebuilt the integration to HubSpot was a really helpful process. And I made sure I really fought tooth and nail to not even learn what was built in Salesforce because I didn't want to just copy it over to a new system. So we kind of reimagined everything, and it was a good opportunity to reset the table.
And so, as the VP of RevOps, you're doing this in partnership with revenue leaders, post sales leaders. And to what extent did those processes change or get updated as you were switching systems?
I don't think that anything changed too drastically. We tried to keep people's workflows during the day, just the management of customers. We tried to keep it as similar as we could in the areas where people thought it was working well. So, for example, in support, we had no issues. They didn't want to change anything. And I'm not surprised because our customer satisfaction scores are like 97% every month forever. And so it was like, okay, this is working. It's not broken. Don't touch it. Let's look at other stuff. And so for the rest of the areas, we looked at doing everything we could to simplify. So where the sales process required 7 stages before, we moved it to 5. And where you needed 10 clicks to go look at a customer's billing prior, we tried to get it to as few clicks as possible. Really just looking to streamline. And one thing that was super interesting about the setup is that in PhoneBurner, the product, the email address doesn't have to be unique. It's not the unique identifier for the customer. And so this is the thing that really creates the complexity of integrating back to a CRM where a contact record is, deduped on email address. And so we had a few things that were not going to change that we needed to design around, and we're able to do that effectively in HubSpot.
Yeah, and that's presumably a big source of consternation is getting those integration points right because you don't want to be
Mhm.
redoing them. To what extent does your job extend? We always think of RevOps as supporting the chief revenue officer. To what extent does your role extend then into account management, customer success, and into post sales?
Yeah, I would say that I am really evenly distributed across all the different functions in the business. So I'm lucky I get to serve, as a member of our executive team, and I care just as much about engineering as I do about trust and safety and our customers and go to market. And so I have a lot of vested interest in all of the different areas. I think that sometimes CROs are, kind of pigeonholed in this new business world. And I would love to continue to see the CRO role become more encompassing of marketing and sales and CS. I think we're seeing that a little bit, but there's always room to grow into it. And so for PhoneBurner, we really try to keep everything in a unified point of view for reporting and analytics and process. Certainly approached it that way with HubSpot. There are not separate objects for customer team and stuff like that, because we want everyone to be able to use that contact record, understand the full picture, um, get their onboarding work logged in HubSpot just like anything else, so that everybody has that context and can be aware.
So there's no separate customer success system, account management system besides HubSpot. We're doing all that. We're all doing all that within there.
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah. There are still a few things that our team needs to go look at in our products, because the product usage hasn't been completely mirrored yet. I think we need to decide how far we want to take that, but generally we've tried to get the important stuff in there.
I mean, I'll say, and I was in the software space here for a long time, and the idea of not overcomplicating things is really meaningful, because there's this, there's this affliction out there that's like, oh, I can just have one more dashboard, one more thing, one more place to go do work, and it's very easy to fall prey to the pitches, right? And be like, oh, I really do need this. I need this little piece of information. I need this thing here. And you wind up with these really complex things where teams are going into multiple places for the same information, or it's just, you kind of wonder what is the marginal utility of that next that next piece of data or something like that. You sounds like you got a very strong philosophy on keeping stuff simple, so you're trying to centralize it, in this case around HubSpot, because that's the thing that you decided on. And I guess there's going to be some trade-offs there where you may not get full feature of everything, but you're then building a very easy UI and interaction mode for your users, and everyone therefore gets used to using one system all the time. Is that kind of the backbone of the philosophy? Like, tell me more about how that worked.
Yeah, that's the goal for sure. My boss, Chris, our CEO, he kind of gave me this charter on day one, and it was the SEC framework: simple, effective, confident. That is exactly what we're looking for. Um, and when it comes to overhauling processes and getting them as simple as possible, there's simplifying systems, and then there's also simplifying the process, right? And those are not necessarily the exact same thing. We knew that from a systems perspective, as much as we could simplify it, A, we were going to save some money. B, we were going to, make it easier for our teams to use and learn. And so we've tackled it from that angle first, really looking at all of the systems and what it takes for people to get things done. So to your point, we've tried to standardize, and on the new business side, um, our team is using the HubSpot meeting booking functionality, the proposals and quotes, all the CRM functionality in there as well. And so it's pretty unified, pretty standardized. It has been a little bit slower on the account management side of the house in customer success, and there are a few minor reasons for that. And one reason was with the calendar booking. Um, they are really like, they lean on the Calendly calendar booking because of your ability for that link to expire. And that was a very minor thing that, had to get identified in the discovery process and scoping that out. They said, oh, do the links expire? Because that's important to us, because, we want customers to go to the correct resource down the road. And if they have our calendar link from onboarding, they're just going to go back and use it again. And there's a different resource that they should be going to. And I said, no, the HubSpot ones can't expire. And so they felt really strongly about it. And I said, okay, then keep using Calendly links. It's something where you have to approach that philosophy, but make sure that you have room for the edge cases to come in, because I could have laid down a hard line and said, nope, you have to use the HubSpot meeting booker. But if I did that, they would have been pissed off, and some customer would have accidentally used the wrong link, and people might have been upset by that. Um, so instead, we just found a way to keep the Calendly ones working correctly, even though they're coming into HubSpot, and So there has to be a little bit of flexibility, even though we're on this mission to simplify things. I think our Calendly invoice got reduced by more than half, but we did keep some of that so that the customer team could keep on using it.
And when you looked at the other sort of core processes for the account management and CS side, what were those? I mean, I imagine it's some renewal process, QBR process, customer health. What all went in? What all goes into that to that set of processes there?
Yeah, I think there are a few distinct ones that I would point out. And, I'll be the first to say we don't have all of these fixed up yet. And shame on me, it's been a year, but we still have some work to do on a few of these. So first, we have our purchase process, and that can be done through sales or product-led growth on somebody's on their self-service, approach. Either way, we reach out to schedule onboarding. And so we have a team that helps them get launched, get going, but with using the platform. So that's a pretty distinct process that is working well in HubSpot. Then we have account management, and they have some different tiers of account management and what those entitlements look like for various customers, as well as different product lines. And so we basically have a custom object in HubSpot for the PhoneBurner accounts. And these are the people who, are paying us monthly to use a service. And the team works from that PhoneBurner account object with all contacts linked to it so that they can see who belongs together. And that was an improvement over the past because they used to work contacts without really understanding which contacts were supposed to be grouped into the same organization. And so that was a big sort of carrot for moving over, was to have this situation where the account can show you all the people that work there. And then we also create the users as they sign up to begin dialing on PhoneBurner, but we have some ways to keep those, out of everybody's way in the system itself. So account management, there are different cadences of meetings and check-ins, and we do customer marketing and all of that good stuff. We don't often have QBRs with our customers. I think that it's a little bit more ad hoc than that. But certainly we've got some customers who are on a contract who need to go through a renewal process. And that hasn't changed very much today. That one is still more manual than I would like. That's on the radar to revamp for next year.
And then renewals, presumably if it's month to month, the renewal is baked in, or that you go through an actual cycle.
Some people are on an annual contract where they do have a cycle, and we need to keep an eye on those dates. And we also have some processes around product usage where we want to be able to monitor who's really ramping up their usage, or who has purchased some seats that are not active right now. They've got some unused capacity. Let's go check on them, make sure we understand why. Most of our upgrades are self-serve. And so there are some moments where, we're taking an offer to them because we think that they're a fit for an upgrade. But then sometimes those are just happening in the background and we just need to be aware of it. So different options, which I think, ultimately creates a little bit of, different ways to keep track of what's happening. But everything gets reported back to that PhoneBurner account object so we can see all of the revenue correctly and keep people aware of what's going on.
I want to go back to that SEC process that you were talking about: simple, effective, and confident. So where did that come from, and how are you then tracking back against this in your in your work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's always in the back of my mind because
is it a company mantra, or is it just something for RevOps?
It's just for me.
Okay.
It's just for RevOps. When we started introducing some of these changes to the company, I was very lucky to have Chris in my corner to champion this idea of hey, we're making things more simple. And so for really everything I do, I'm just kind of running it through that framework. Is it simple? Are we confident? Are we going to be able to look at this and rely on the data that we're getting? And, thankfully I can say so far, the answer is yes. The changes that we've made, we trust them. We don't have to question the data. There are some times where it will look funny in HubSpot. I'm like, ooh, I need to go check that to make sure it's right. And then sure enough, it's right. And so it just further increases the confidence of the data that's coming out of the system. And we no longer spend time in meetings kind of debating, what the right answer is to a metric. It allows us to move forward and talk about how to impact those metrics instead of just talking about if the number is right or wrong. So it's really a me thing, but I try to, build it into everything that I do as I interact with the rest of the team. And a lot of people have, been doing a good job of embracing that.
Well, I'll say that I think this is a really important intersection of a number of different ideas. So when it comes to things like forecast could be for new business or it could be for renewals and upsells. Like we want to be right. We don't want to be full of fantasy and kind of hoping and this kind of thing. So we want to have really good within a small band. We want to have really good forecast because we use that information to make all sorts of resourcing and investment decisions across the entire company. So we want to be right about that and not overly optimistic. And so we then want to have a system that encourages everyone to behave in a certain way. So we've got a process, and then we have a place where all this gets documented. And that's really important for a growing, scaling company like PhoneBurner because we're no longer relying on heroics, right? And if there's one thing that the our post sales friends in account management and customer success are famous for, it's heroics and too much crazy effort, and then like pulling this, they do all this great work, they do all these amazing things, but then the forecast is like never accurate because we don't know who's going to go and like do some crazy moonshot thing. And so we're bringing a lot of things together under this framework of SEC. I'm just kind of double clicking there on confidence because of how important it is for you then to say, yes, I'm confident we are going to be accurate with our forecast. So there's kind of a lot of moving parts there, but I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of the overarching theme that you're trying to drive at.
It is, yeah. And I think that if we can simplify the way that we do anything, even forecasting as an example, um, simplifying the approach there allows us to iterate and refine faster. If I have a forecast that accounts for every single piece of the business, we've got our inbound demand gen that comes in and they self-serve. That's the PLG funnel. We have the sales funnel. We have users that are upgrading from a solo user to a team. That's another form of new MRR. We have a channel. We have a whole other product line called Armor. We have all of these different pieces. And if we had to sit down and forecast every single tiny piece of that every day or every week, um, it would be really tough to iterate and move it forward and get better. And so we try to simplify things, the best that we can to the extent where we're really just looking at the new business from PLG and sales. And we have Armor over here. It's done separately. We're not trying to like make this crazy complicated forecast because A, no one will understand it. B, it'll never be right. And C, it's hard to refine the actual process you're using. So, we have the fastest sales cycle in terms of a B2B product that you can buy yourself. Some people come and they buy in an hour. And if I'm like bending over backwards to try to forecast how often that's going to happen, I would be going crazy, right? So some of it just has to happen in the background. And so that's an element of simplicity where you have to like have the discipline to let go of a few of those things and just monitor what is happening instead of trying to guess how many people are going to come close within the hour today.
I'm noting that we are over 20 minutes into our conversation, and amazingly, we haven't talked about AI.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
you just said you rebuilt the tech stack from the ground up, replaced the CRM, changed the CRM, doing all this stuff to keep things simple. No mention of AI as a company, no mention of AI personal use, etc. So I guess now I feel compelled to ask, what's your philosophy or strategy around AI then?
I do like AI. I call it the robots. I just always have. So We do have some robots involved in things that are helping us, and it's less on the customer side of the house right now. It's a little bit more on the new business end. When we first got in there and looked at what was built in Salesforce, on the opportunity, there were, I don't know, probably at least 20 things that the rep had to go fill out and they were required. And when we first got going in HubSpot, I said, nothing's required, nothing. And nobody was like oohing and ahhing about that. I think in companies past, I would have had people like falling out of their chairs. But long story short, I want to see what data matters before we start requiring it. And what we were able to do is get to the point where our meeting recording tool, which is Fathom, it takes the meeting transcript, it summarizes it, and then it pushes the answers from the summary into HubSpot and updates the deal for the rep. And so not only are some of these things not required, the rep doesn't have to touch it, it just happens. And so key pieces of information from the call are brought in on their behalf, and then they just have to check it, make sure that nothing crazy got in there prior to handing that customer over to the customer success team. And so I would say that's the biggest win that we've had so far. The only thing I want the reps to have to really think about and really go change are the close date, the amount of how many seats they're selling, which drives the price, and the likelihood that it's going to close, and that's their forecast. And so everything else, to the best of our ability, I would love for it to just happen automatically without them having to go in there. So that's been kind of our biggest use of it thus far, and we've been really happy with it. I think my general approach is to spend extra time in testing, because if you launch it with bugs, people really instantly lose trust. And then you've got problems on your hands. And so I'm a big fan of rolling things out in like a pilot fashion just for one user. We have a great team lead in sales named Isaac, who has been my guinea pig for a lot of these things. And we also have some AI going on to craft some custom value propositions according to like a person and their segment and persona, how we think they'll benefit by using PhoneBurner. We kind of draft that up for the rep. It's got a little package where they get to see the recent news for the company that the person works at, what their use case might be, how we can help them. And instead of, having to go research every single thing, we try to make that suggestion for them as they prepare for their calls.
And what are you using for that, Clay?
Actually, I'm using Freckle for that, which is a Clay competitor.
I don't know them. That's cool. That's great. All right, awesome. So the primary use case, by the way, it makes a ton of sense. This way, I mean, can we safely say the best CRM is a CRM no one ever has to log into? So I'm just doing my calls and it's recording all the information, and then it's magically updating the with the data. And then maybe yes, I do need to verify something or other, but for the most part, I'm not stuck in this like big amount of admin work. And that's going to be totally applicable on the CS and account management side as well, right? We're doing customer calls all day, and having that stuff there to indicate customer health or likelihood to renew, or flag any type of risks. So risk monitoring, risk management presumably is somewhere on your list of things to start looking at as well. So all that really does come down, like it descends from the customer conversation and making it therefore easy. Have you looked at anything to like incorporate coaching, process coaching, or question coaching, sales methodology coaching for people?
We haven't really gone down that path yet. Fathom does have like a scorecard functionality for the call, so I can look for certain words to be mentioned, and I can use that to either score the customer sentiment or to score our team. Are we hitting the points we need to hit? And so those are some really fun use cases to explore. Funny enough, and maybe this is top secret, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say it, but we are looking at ways to build coaching into PhoneBurner, the dialing product. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves and how our team uses it for our own learning and testing and drinking our own champagne as we are working with customers. Um, but the customer success team is not a huge user of PhoneBurner. They're not really like power dialing their customers. They're more so having meetings with them and doing one-off calls. So we'll see where it goes. But I think that's an area that we can grow into.
When you think about your role and supporting the account management team, there's a lot of things that the account management team does not know about RevOps and what you do all day and what your priorities are and what your goals are. What do you wish the account management team actually knew about what it is that you get up to all day?
Very, very insightful question. And I have a good answer to this, I think. Okay. So, there's this stigma or sense or feeling that, new business kind of gets all the attention and customer success, unfortunately, is an afterthought sometimes. And, I've seen situations where it's totally true. I've seen situations where it's not totally true. I've seen situations where, people are trying to make it as even as possible. And it's tough. It's a tough balance. And I think that what I wish people understood is a little bit more of the motivation behind why the new business world feels like so urgent. And I'm not saying that this is a correct way of thinking, but I have identified, I think, the reason for this. And it's because if somebody comes and like checks out your company as a prospect and they're not a customer yet, um, the idea of that person slipping through the cracks and not getting the follow up they need feels very dire. It's like, oh, this is a contract we could have had, but we didn't. And time is of the essence because they're shopping around at other vendors and we need to get in there and speed to lead is everything. And so it creates this urgency for go to market on the new business side and lead scoring, routing, follow up, opportunity creation. It just feels like it's on fire. And I wish people would treat the account management the exact same way because we all know that it costs more to go get a new customer than it does to keep one, right? And we should be able to express that exact same urgency with a customer that is in need. And I don't think everyone does that. And so if you're in a business where the urgency is applied on the new business side, but it's not applied on the customer success side, I think that's where you get the imbalance. And so I'm always trying to keep it as balanced as I possibly can because retention, I think, is so important. And happy customers are the key to going and getting more customers, whether that's having people that are willing to give you a success story or people that are going to expand and grow with you or refer their friends. I mean, there's so many different reasons that happy customers are the most important thing. And there has to be urgency applied to it, and it has to start at the top. People have to really, you know, treat it the same way at the top of the business as well.
Nice answer. Yeah, totally. I mean, look, the account management team is by and large unsung heroes, right? Do all the work, do tons of work, deliver 70+% of the revenue every year, do not get 70% of the credit, pats on the back, or resources, that's for sure. And there does seem to be less urgency around this. Now, when you were talking about the FOMO that people will feel when there's a lead that we don't follow up on or something falls through the cracks, yeah, that's an opportunity cost of revenue. And then there's the real cost of revenue of what happens when a customer who is paying us money bails for one reason or another. And I think that should be lighting everybody's hair on fire just as much as the other side is. But I like the way you frame that, and I think that really we need to be thinking of account management and RevOps as allies and not adversaries, not any conflict. A lot of people think, oh, the RevOps is trying to tell me what to do or handcuff me or make me do too much admin work or what have you. But no, because what you're getting to is you're getting to the point that you're saying, I understand the economic dynamics of the business, and I want to support that throughout the whole thing because that's how we help the team win. We help the team win by making sure that we're all doing things that are going to drive profitable revenue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that almost every single play that you hear about on the new business side of the fence can be applied or run with the customer base in some way. You know, we monitor for keyword intent for our competitors to see who's in the market. You should 1000% be doing that for your customer base. It's so
1000%.
much more important. You know, like if I knew that my best customer was shopping around on my competitor's website, I would be putting my CEO on a plane. And that's the thing that, you know, maybe people forget, or there's not equal resourcing to understand the best way to go and tackle these things. Um, but, you know, gaining new customers and throwing them into a leaky bucket is the most frustrating. And I've been there. I've been in a business where, you know, you get all this new business and then you lose the same amount in that month. And it's like, oh, we're standing still. We're doing so much work in new business to just stand still. And that is what we want to avoid.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we're glad to have people like you out there in our camp, in the account managers camp, to help
Yeah.
us to win the game here. Awesome. Well, Mallory Lee, thanks so much for joining us and sharing this perspective on RevOps.
You are welcome. We'll see you soon.